today we're going to talk about the crazy world that project managers face. Over the years, we have found that across all kinds of organizations, large and small, public, private, regardless of the nature of the business, manufacturing, service organizations, there's some universal themes, realities around managing projects and the tricky role that project managers play. So we're going to explore today some tools and techniques and we think some great best practices to help you with that. So to get started, I'd like to just sort of explore the realities as we often see them. As a project manager, it's interesting, we certainly have the responsibility to deliver a project. That's on us. But the authority commensurate with that responsibility is often mismatched. And that's a challenge. As an example, the team that we have, if they're not performing well, we can't necessarily fire them. We can't necessarily go hire the people we know we really need on our team. Promoting, rewarding, and recognizing is another challenging area as we're trying to lead this team that just came to us in an ad hoc fashion that in an everyday sort of perspective doesn't necessarily report to us. And so this is a challenging piece of this. Expectations with projects are, of course, always off the charts. We're trying to grow and improve and get into new markets and grow our top line, whatever the project is supporting, and those expectations are tough. The commitments are tenuous. The agreements around how, say, IT and the business customers, if that happens to be the scenario, sometimes these organizations don't play well together, or there's a lot of, political and other challenges, dynamics in the organization as we would all expect. And as a project manager, we tend to certainly be on the front line of dealing with some of those things because of the nature of the work we're trying to get done. And within the context of the project itself, during the life of the project, especially if it's long, the priorities, today schedule's number one, and tomorrow the budget gets cut, and things are always moving. So those priorities are shifting as we're trying to navigate down the road. And it's tough because it's tough to say no to some of these things that we see coming down the road towards us. It's tough to push back. And in our view, philosophically, we want to find opportunities and give you approaches to thoughtfully and in a helpful way, in part, say no, and to productively disrupt what we're seeing. And again, whether it's pushing back and providing guidance and direction into another area, or again, there are norms or relationship kinds of situations and political issues that you're facing and dealing with, and how do you disrupt some of that? So I want to explore some neat things that, like I said, that we're gonna move through. And what's funny is, while these are some of the realities of the organization, I think it's important to remember that responsibility for the project is ours. And if it doesn't go well, it's unfortunately oftentimes laid at our feet. So that's really the driver here as to why we think this presentation and what we're going to talk about is so important, because we want to protect you and help you in this regard. So now, typically, when we're faced with these things, we all do our best, give it the old college try, and nothing wrong with that. We also often see organizationally, businesses know that they're facing some of these challenges, and there's all kinds of solutions out there. And for example, we often jump out there and get projects and portfolio management software. We acquire these tools, and there are some amazing solutions, wonderful stuff in the market. We totally support it. Okay. The thing is, the organization has to be ready. The organization has to be skilled and able to absorb these solutions and these capabilities and to leverage them. Now, when that doesn't happen, and we jump to the tool solution before we have that base, that strength, that reasonable maturity in the business, well, we have a name for that. These powerful tools apply to, say, a less than mature environment. We call that mounting afterburners on a mule. Now that's an interesting picture. We're just getting started in the morning here today. For some of you on the West Coast, some of you on the East Coast have already started your day, but whatever the case, you might still be trying to get your head around what does that look like. Well, here's a picture. This is, if you're the project manager, you're the guy back there in the dust, right? So we certainly don't want that. All right, a little humor in the morning, right? Doesn't hurt. So going forward here, yes, these are challenges. Yes, we do the best we can. And while I may be painting kind of a negative piece here to get us started, don't worry. Positivity is around the corner. And I think it's also important to say that, you know what, all things considered, projects absolutely and eventually do get done, right? I mean, we know the business moves forward. The thing is, and why this is so important, is we need to optimize, because while things do get done, often it's not in the best sequence, not by the best people for the job, because we are often over-allocated or misallocated. The outcomes that we're seeking in terms of schedule, budget, and all the typical scope, quality, you know, all the typical drivers that surround and how we define a successful project may not be met. And again, the budget and other factors might be in charge. And with all that said, you know, as a project manager, we feel the weight of those sponsors coming down on us and saying, "Come on, get it done." And sometimes I hear these voices, "Please help me. You know, what are we going to do?" So, what's a project manager to do? Okay, well, I'm going to give you 5 things we're going to talk about here, and it's all about taking charge. This is essentially the base message today of how to be productively disruptive to this kind of environment. And the first item is what we call building a solid foundation. And, you know, I think it's a universal truth. Most things that go well and continue to go well have a solid foundation underneath them. And that's certainly the case here. So we're going to explore a bit about what that means in this context. I'm also going to introduce to you a technique called intelligent disobedience. And if you haven't heard of that before, it's a really interesting approach. It's a technique of communication and due diligence. And so we'll explore that a bit. I'm also going to talk a little bit about what we call going forth and mingling. So how do you go forth and mingle? This is important. I'm also going to share a little story and give you some tools around something we call "I'm okay, the bull is dead." And I'm sure that one's got you thinking, so that'll be fun to discuss. And then lastly, say thank you. Yeah, we're going to talk about the power of doing just that. So with that in mind, let's move forward and jump into our first topic, building a solid foundation. Well, a solid foundation for us, you know, as we thought about over these many decades we've been in this business, you know, what are the themes that really constitute success? What are the common factors? And we reached out and said, you know what, let's talk to some of our most interesting clients. And this list gives you a summary of some of the people that we talked to. We do a lot of work and we have in the past in the airline industry. So we discussed with both some commercial and through the DoD some combat oriented pilots, because highly trained, skilled, of course, people who have a lot riding on their performance. In the healthcare industry, we talked to a few chiefs of surgery and wanted to get a sense from that very high pressure and performance driven not by any stretch of the imagination, probably one of the most important areas to, of course, perform optimally. We talked in the arts and entertainment field with a symphony conductor, a fire chief, very, again, high pressure, got to deliver on the work kind of environment. And lastly, actually a Michelin-rated